Alright, Michael Mullinex, Geek Citadel. This is clearly not the LA Convention Center. This is clearly not E3 times. This is our post-E3 wrap-up. Right here. As my friend, Mr. Tom Pinchuk, writer, columnist, and we're going to refer to him as the one-game gamer. In other words, he plays one game every year. That's
got to be good enough. It's got to be up to that snuff. I'm a busy guy.
He's a busy guy, but he is the perfect personality to walk us through his thoughts on E3. He is not going to mince words. He's going to give you exactly what he knows about the games.
That's right. And we'll start the discussion by prodding you and seeing what's going on in this noggin because you were there.
I was there. I was on the showroom floor. You saw my responses, my tweets, my Facebook post, everything that's gone on. This has been one of my busiest E3s, and I'm glad to be joining you again this year. So,
you reemerged from the crypt after your stasis recuperation. Now we want to ask you a question. Eyes on, Mike.
Eyes on.
Mortal Kombat X.
Okay, of course we're going to start on what is probably going to be your game 2015. Mortal Kombat X is going to be probably one of my favorite games 2015.
You're saying so already. Did you get hands-on with it?
I was not able to get hands on it, but I like what they're doing. I like the elements they're bringing over from Injustice. I like how they're kind of Tekken 3-izing the storyline, bringing it forward a generation into the future.
25 years span of storyline. That's just unheard of.
I mean, the fact that, like one of the characters they showed in the demonstration, I don't think there's been much on her appearing on YouTube.
Are you talking about Cassie Cage?
Cassie Cage, however her name is being pronounced. The daughter of Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage. Now, Johnny Cage is, aside from, outside the realm of ninjas and everything like that, Johnny Cage has always been one of my favorite characters, so it's nice to see...
You got that tattoo right here.
Oh, yeah.
Cage. Right across here. So, we got new characters. We of course got Sub-Zero and Scorpion, our old mainstays. Can't have a Mortal Kombat game without them. But in addition, we now have D'Vorah, the bug girl, the sorceress, whatever.
We have Casey Cage, we have D'Vorah, we have Farah Tor.
We have a Master Blaster set up. We got like a real feral kid on top of a lumbering brute with a mask on.
Yes, and he looked interesting. It was actually one of the first times in a Mortal Kombat game outside of Goro that you actually see a brawler archetype coming into the Mortal Kombat fray.
I believe you said he was like Doomsday meets Bane.
That is the rumors that are coming about, is in terms of people who have actually been able to get a little hands-on, and the developers are saying kind of in that kind of cross-up mix.
Now, there's one more character whose name really raises some eyebrows, and I would say they got the big question mark of it, like they used to have, when you get to that mystery round in the Mortal Kombat ladder.
Yes.
Who are we talking about but Kubal Khan?
And little has been said.
Is he the son of Shao Kahn?
Little has been
you got the inside scoop, Mike.
Little has been said about him so far, but he is an Aztec warrior that's allegedly the son of Shao Kahn.
Wields a nasty atlatl. The club that's got the ridges on it to really do some damage.
Yeah, I mean, not much of a speed character, but great damage output. And seriously, if you got to see any of his fatalities in the Sizzle video so far, I mean, this is probably one of the characters I'm really eager to get some playtime with, just because, I mean, dear God, it's it's something different we haven't seen in a Mortal Kombat archetype.
Yeah, I will say this is a guy who got in trouble for playing Mortal Kombat 1 back in '93. That's I played every single game since then. Normally, when they announce a new MK game, they say, "Oh, it's going to have new characters." You're just like, come on, give me the guys I like." This is the first time as an old school with a K Mortal Kombat fan that I looked at this and I said, "You know what? These actually new characters are pretty cool and exciting. I'm intrigued about what their story is going to be." And I like also, again, that the way that the series hooks you is by, of course, pushing the story angle. And now we got this new timeline after the Mortal Kombat reboot, which is Ed Boon kept referring to as Mortal Kombat 9, even though it wasn't sold that way. But they're getting pretty audacious with this, Mike. It's going to be going for 25 years, taking the series a new Startling Directions after, I think it was Sub-Zero and Scorpion forged a new alliance that they realized they shouldn't have been fighting this whole time?
Right.
Okay. So, you know how we feel. And you should feel the same, but if you don't, you'll come around eventually. Okay, now next game, Mike. Controversial. Assassin's Creed Unity. What's your take on this?
Okay. I'm going to put the controversy aside for 2 minutes. And the amount that I've been able to see on this, I'm hesitantly optimistic. I'm a fan of the Assassin's Creed series. I look at this like, wow, okay, the idea of, well, bringing it to the logical location of Paris in the Revolution.
During the Terror?
Yeah, during the late 1700s. Kind of always been what I've felt is probably the logical step from the series, but still glad we got Assassin's Creed 3. The idea of bringing 4 players into this and being able to explore co-op in that way, on one hand, wow, that looks incredible. On the other hand, am I smelling something like an absolute cluster coming out of this? But we'll see how it shapes up.
I mean, what happens if they're all trying to steal something at the same time, Mike? Who's gonna get it first? Who's gonna assassinate the target first if you're competing with 3 other people?
I can just see the scenario in which 3 people are, in a match, in a co-op play, and everybody's got headsets on, but there's always one character, always one player who doesn't put it in his headset, and we're all still trying to bark orders, and he's trying to do something odd to give everybody
do his own thing.
Yeah,
Leroy Jenkins to get up.
He's always trying to give everybody clues that he might be able to hear us, but he's not fully committed into this. Otherwise, he'd be able to talk back with us and say, no, I'm taking out the left guard. So
you're talking about yourself, aren't you, Mike? This is your way of sharing it with. You're confessing being not a great team player.
I'm just saying, if I play single player on this, I think I'd be so good to get my money's worth.
Okay. Now, Mike, you provided me with a list. I think we, just in the interest of time, we ought to just kind of rattle it off. And if you feel like you want to say more, we'll delve further into it. But if not, just maybe a couple pithy comments because you got a quick wit.
Right.
Okay. What's your number 3?
Witcher number 3. Logically, again, best game of E3.
Really?
The angles that they're going for, open world gameplay, progressive world system, just the fact that it feels like a living, breathing world. You're able to hunt down monsters. Just everything about this feels
what more
like.
Could you ask for?
It feels like what we loved about Skyrim and other Elder Scrolls games, just brought to a logical next step.
And more questionable grammar.
Yeah.
Batman Arkham Knight.
My view on this was limited, but I'm a fan of the Arkham series, so yeah, more of that and the Batmobile. I don't think we really need to go into too much detail of why that is awesome.
Dragon Age Inquisition.
Actually, really impressed by this. Dragon Age Origins was a great game. Dragon Age 2 was very interesting, but probably a little underwhelming. But Dragon Age Inquisition really takes it further. Actually feels like a better combat system. Especially even the dodge rolls that seem to leap you further into the world, and
a new jewel in the crown, perhaps.
And especially even the hook shot that our heroes now have, somewhat reminiscent of Scorpion's "Get Over Here" claw.
Van Damme spear.
The Van Damme spear.
Well, okay, Sunset Overdrive. I got actually I got some skin in this game. Well, not a ton. I mean, my friend got some friends actually at Insomniac Games, and I've known about this for a while. I'm rocking their T-shirt. Actually, there was a kind of a very Dali-esque, surrealist graffiti that was kind of the demon of marketing. So I've known about this thing for a while, and they were talking about how they wanted it to be a response to the doom and gloom of a lot of post-apocalyptic shooters these days, and they wanted to present a happy apocalypse. So and they make that pretty explicit in the trailer for the game, actually, right? Because you're in like a very like grim and gritty Call of Duty shooter situation, and they're doing the cover system, and then the guy pops in and he's talking to camera and saying, "Hey, it's a video game."
That is, and of course, the quote from that trailer was a lot more explicit, but that's actually the perfect mentality. I got a chance to talk and meet with the creative director on this, and that's exactly what they're going for. Is like, hey, the world's coming to an end. How do you present yourself now that like rules have just flown out the window? And the fact that it feels like a video game, the fact that like.
Little bit of Jet Set Radio in it.
Very much.
Little bit, yeah.
Very much so. And yeah, they talked about like, hey, they just came off of Resistance 3, very bleak look at the apocalypse of the world after the world. So it's like, this is the logical, like, hey, let's now turn up the rock and roll. Let's all have a party. Let's take bats and put explosives on it.
The zombies have been they've all mutated because of a infected power drink, as I recall, right?
Yes, and backstage they were passing out mock-up cans of some sort of energy drink. And
did you drink it, Mike?
Well, I guess I haven't. I guess I haven't drank enough of it yet.
Okay. All right, now on to the next one, Tales of Xillia 2. I am not familiar with this franchise.
I should talk about it because I think the Tales of series has actually come into its own this past generation. Final Fantasy's kind of been on a little bit of the wane with the 13 games that have come out lately, but Tales of has actually kind of formed an identity to itself, and Tales of Xillia was actually probably one of my favorite RPGs on this.
I think I've seen the anime based on this.
I think you've actually seen Tales of Vesperia. Actually, I think we did a.
That's right.
For your site, we did a featurette on Tales of Vesperia.
So many made-up names to keep track of.
But Tales of Xillia was probably one of my favorite RPGs, and looking at the sequel, taking it to a next level, to a new aesthetic, so I'm excited.
Okay.
Get ready.
Another sequel, Homefront Revolution. Now, as I recall, is this the one that's based off, that's kind of riffing off of Red Dawn? Is that the one that started off?
Riffing off is probably the wrong term.
What's the right term for it, Mike?
Specifically almost rebooted because it is the actual. If I'm not mistaken, it's actually the same writer from.
John Milius.
Yeah, I think he actually had a hand in this.
This is gonna be a manly game. This is gonna be a manly game, Mike. Red blood and red meat.
The first game was. The first game had issues, but.
We all got issues, Mike. We'll work through them.
And specifically for this next outing, they have Crytek behind them. Everybody remembers how the other game looked on Unreal. This game actually almost feels very close to Crysis. So that's actually one of the things I noticed from it. The idea of like being able to mod your guns, your weapons.
And you're still repelling the North Korean occupation.
Yes. This time not on the West Coast, but in Pennsylvania. I actually believe Philadelphia specifically, if memory serves me right.
Right, really.
So
Idea of brotherly love.
Well, I always kind of found it weird with Red Dawn. It's like the East Coast has been invaded. Now with Homefront 1, the West Coast was the one that was invaded. So it's interesting to think like what part of America is being sectioned off here. But for this next game, I'm actually hopeful. I'd like to see some more of it, but there's actually some good possibilities here.
Now, I feel like there's been a previous installment of this, but there's no actual on your list here. There's nothing really specifically telling me that this is that's separate from the previous Dead Island games. So it's just Dead Island. Zombies have overtaken a resort.
Dead Island.
Just let it out. Just let it out.
Okay.
It's boiling inside you, man. Just let it out.
Dead Island has some possibilities, and what they showed us was still very early. I wouldn't be surprised if we are still quite a time away from Dead Island 2. The number one thing I had to
so it hasn't come out yet?
No. Dead Island 2 is the game that's been shown off recently. I worry that it might kind of fall by the wayside a little bit now that the team from the previous game is actually making Dying Light with Warner Brothers. So I'm wondering if it's going to get caught in the fray a little bit. But the other thing that's going through my mind as I'm watching this is now they're bringing Dead Island to California, which unfortunately had me writing in my notepad, not an island.
Those islands off the coast, perhaps?
This one actually takes place in San Francisco.
That's not an island.
That's not an island.
No.
No. It'll take place in Los Angeles as well.
Maybe they'll need to retitle the series. It's something else. Dead City.
Dead Island, Dead Nation. You
Yeah.
know, there needs a colon in there somewhere.
Now, well, speaking of colons, Mike, I know this one's got a very interestingly placed one. Middle Earth, Shadows in Mordor. Mike, everybody knows that you're the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. You love all the scenic views of the New Zealand countryside that they walk across throughout those films. So I'm curious what you think of this next film, Middle Earth, Shadows of Mordor.
I can't do it. I've cracked up in the middle of your speech because, and this is going to cause some upset on the forums. But
Gets people butthurt.
I am not a Lord of the Rings fan. I am not a Lord. I do not care about the books, the series, the movies, the anything. But that said,
big butt coming.
That said, and take this from not a fan. I have never read the books.
Is this what's going to finally win you over? This game actually was probably one of the finest presented demonstrations I've not only seen of this E3, but any E3. It's just that exquisite.
It was great. A lot of content shown, a lot of the features about how to take on different sects and factions of the Orc army were incredible. This was also the only E3 demonstration I've ever seen where your character dies, gets respawned, but actually like game over screen, and then you come back into the fray.
So you're saying the guy who was playing the demonstration, this wasn't particularly good at playing his own game?
Oh, he was doing a better job than I think I could have, because like he was going up against one Orc chieftain, and he had 5 bodyguards, practically unheard of in this kind of random signed setup they had there, right? But the fun one is he actually died, and then they showed off like once time progresses, the world keeps on going, and then you're able to come back and seek revenge on the character that
just previously died,
just put you in the ground. Yeah. And the fun one is and like I couldn't tell if it was more scripted or anything, but it felt really genuine. But the fun one is when you see so many of these E3 demonstrations, you're watching something highly scripted or something where the guy's clearly on like a god mode, because you're not going to get into those press conferences and like all of a sudden you're watching Call of Duty on the big screen at Microsoft and somebody throws a rogue grenade and it's like, sorry everybody, we've got to respawn at the point so we can keep going.
Maybe they have this whole elaborate system for their fighting game where they have it locked to the PS3. You can also play it on the Vita at the same time, yet there are connectivity issues.
This is
has that happened sometimes?
This is a conversation from an earlier E3 that we were both part of. We'll get into that next time.
We'll get into that next time. All right, so that goes to show, kids. If you have your multimedia franchise that's got books and comics and movies and other video games, you just gotta keep cranking those installments out until you win over the unconverted.
I'm just saying, and sometimes with these kind of things, especially with this game where I can't identify a ready connection necessarily to the movies and everything, sometimes a fresh perspective really does help. If I'm not feeling, and that goes true with the Telltale games, like The Walking Dead. I don't really watch the series, but I love those games. So
okay. Now you got your hands right on the counter right here. I think that's appropriate because we want to get to the hands-on games in this discussion right now. The ones that you actually got to play. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, Super Smash Brothers on the Wii U. What is there to relate about this? Now you can play. They've expanded the roster. Namco's making it now, so you got Pac-Man in the lineup. In addition to Snake's still in there, right?
Snake has not been revealed.
But Mega Man is.
Mega Man is.
Okay.
I tried a couple different rounds with this one, and there were T-shirts that they were giving out for the winners of every round. I tried to get as much hands-on with some of the new characters. There's one from Kid Icarus whose name just eludes me at the moment. Anybody knows like his goddess. Well, Hit's like goddess friend or something like that.
Well, that's going deep into the Kid Icarus lore.
It really is. Whatever Athena is supposed to be called in Kid Icarus lore, just take it from there, right?
So is this basically the last game except on the Wii U now, or is there something fundamentally different about it, or is it just additional characters? You know,
I'd say this. It okay. From what I've gathered of actually playing it, there are good. There have been good measures taken to make it feel more closer to Melee, if not entirely, than say Brawl. People hate Brawl, and for probably good reason, or so they keep repeatedly telling me. I really am not that much of a connoisseur between these games.
You get sent a lot of complaints personally too. Sorry.
What can you do? You say something inflammatory, and everybody's going to comment.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll say this. I think when the first Super Smash Brothers game came out, we were all like, "Hey, that's pretty novel. You can finally settle the score between Link and Mario." And I think 4 or 5 games onward, the novelty's maybe not quite as there anymore.
Well, then, and specifically, I've always liked your take on it. You grew up in Asia, so like. Yeah, we're all like, yeah, oh my god, Smash Brothers, there's, all the Nintendo characters in one location, and you're like, yeah, we had something similar with SNK. It was called King of Fighters.
That's right. It was the King of Fighters of Nintendo characters.
You were able to look at that before we all were.
But, now, let's bring up another fighting game, because, Mike, you're as big of a connoisseur of fighting games as I am, but I know that when you play your games, you really want to have an element of style, and when your characters are fighting, it's not enough they just fight. They gotta strike a pose all the time. They're voguing constantly when they're playing. What else are we talking about now but the latest installment in this franchise, Guilty Gear Xrd? Tendered?
Everybody's been calling it Crossroad for a while, and I've been told repeatedly that that's wrong. Xrd, if we can.
You gotta love it when they get creative about their grammar with these games, right?
Like, guys, this is
Xrd.
These letters are in English, so we might as well just call it Crossroad and just be done with it. But this game looks beautiful. Everything has been. Everything looks like sprites, but it's actually been rendered in 3D. Mm-hmm. When you get to special moments, special moves, you're able to see the camera actually detach from the steady 2D position and float around the character. I mean, this is a game that looks gorgeous. Now, looking at the roster, so far has been 12 characters, and of course, my personal character, Testament, is not in it, but that will be something we take care of with the later installment, I'm sure.
I'm sure DLC will eventually solve that.
Oh, it won't even be DLC, it'll be like an entire, Xrd, accent, core, double R, something like that.
There's gotta be a semicolon somewhere in there, I feel like.
It'll, anybody who's a fan of the Blaze Blue series, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We've had 13 versions of that game already, so I'm not too worried about that, but otherwise it plays well, 60 frames per second, looks gorgeous, 1080p, and I played it on a PS4, and it was seriously, my jaw just dropped. It looked that good. So
okay, now we just embraced our anima. Let's swing the pendulum over and embrace our animus. The very masculine shooting game. How much more manly can you get from Far Cry 4?
Far Cry 4 is it's a perfect playground. It is a absolute perfect playground to just
kill.
And the demonstration we were given hands-on with, you're given this base, an enemy stronghold, and just you have almost infinite amount of options in terms of actually getting in there. You can set bait. I found one of these stakes you're supposed to throw, and you set off a damn tiger into the enemy encampment just so he can go run amok in there.
Is there an option to you take the Three Musketeers bar out and you open it halfway so you can still see the chocolate and make people know that it's still good and just put that in your bear trap? Is that how we deal with mercenaries on the sea these days, Mike? Is that the bait we lay out for them?
Let's just say this. all the options available, especially the bait, and like able to interact with the animals of this area, instead of just like get chomped on by a Komodo dragon.
Is there an option to pet them now? That's what I want to know. Because you get all these
I wasn't
opportunities.
getting close enough.
Okay.
That elephant could trample me, so I stick your distance if you can help.
Okay.